It's time to reload, shoot off and unload, let it rip by the caseload. I've got an obsession, and it has constant progression, getting stronger and stronger with each passing day. The urge to collect these guns that protect, not just another object. Trinkets come and go, but high quality guns aren't just for show. They find a place in our lives and can help us survive. When I need to release some of my stress, a trip to the range is the best. But my feelings aren't repressed, I still feel obsessed, collecting more and more of the best, from Glocks to the 2011s. I'm a collector of self.
Hey guys, welcome back into the channel. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, my name is Jim, and today I'd like to discuss with you something that I feel is a classic and something that I feel a lot of people overlook today, and that is the third generation of Smith & Wesson semi-automatics. Now, I'm 50 years old, so I'm at this kind of magical age when it comes to guns where I've had the opportunity to own, carry, and shoot most everything that's been available. I'm not so old that all I want to talk about is FUD stuff. You've never heard me come out here and ramble on and on and on and on and on about how you only need to have revolvers, or a revolver is the perfect carry gun. And I like revolvers. There's nothing wrong with revolvers. But I am absolutely someone that's at that age where I can appreciate a completely modern gun and still have an appreciation for something that's a classic. I have more polymer-framed striker-fired guns than you could shake a stick at. As a matter of fact, I've made a video about a few of them, and I've talked quite extensively about this one, my Shadow Systems MR920, that I have the Radian Ramjet and Afterburner set up on. This is about as modern as you can get. And I had called this my absolute favorite carry gun. Well, now that's kind of being dethroned as I have begun to carry my Archon Type B Gen 2 more often. And while I had this and wasn't carrying it all that much, this was very much in my top spot, especially once I compensated it. But the more I shoot this, the more I carry this, the more I fall in love with it. So modern, yeah, this is as modern as it gets. The way that the barrel lockup is done, the modularity in the frame where you could take the mag well off. You can run a 15 round, a 13 round, or a 10 round magazine in there and keep extending the frame to match up with the size of the magazine inside. Obviously, it's optic cut. It's got fiber optic front sight. That's as modern as a gun gets. This is also quite modern. And yes, just to show you that everything is cleared that's sitting out here in front of you. I know how that does worry some people. So I'm at that age where I can enjoy kind of everything. I don't look at anything that's new that comes out and go, that's not worth it. Back in my day, we had stuff that, no, nothing like that. I love modernity. I love evolution. I love seeing the best continue to evolve to get better. Because as we age, our skills and our eyesight deteriorate. So we want to see the tools that we're using become better and easier to use. A great example of that is having optics on our pistols now. You go back 30 years ago, the only red dot optics you ever saw were on rifles or on competition-only pistols. That's it. Now, it's so commonplace that almost every pistol made, or at least I'll tell you this, every pistol manufacturer that's of any, decent quality is offering guns that are optics ready. So that's a wonderful evolution, and I haven't hit that age yet where I'm resistant to new things. I jumped very early in my carry career onto Glocks and to striker-fired polymer guns when a lot of people were just stone cold hating on them because they didn't have a hammer. They were plastic and lightweight. And people thought if you left it laying out on the coffee table, your dog was going to chew it up. Like ridiculous, silly shit like that. And if it wasn't an all-metal gun, it was trash. And that's just simply untrue. And we know that now. That's the benefit of hindsight. So I've always tried to be open-minded with pretty much everything. I do like hammer-fired guns. And that's one of the reasons that I still have this and I still love this. A quick little bit of history, since most of this is going to be anecdotal and not so much heavily defined by details and specs and history like you see on my other reviews. The very first gun I ever purchased, the very first handgun that I ever purchased for myself when I was 21 years old was a Smith & Wesson 45-16. So think of this, just larger, significantly heavier, and chambered in 45 ACP, and that's what it was. And I had bought it secondhand from a local gun shop where I was living, and whomever had owned it previously had customized it. They had milled so much off of the slide to make it a completely clean look that it no longer had any of the roll stamp marks. It still had the serrations in it, but everything else was flat, clean, all satin finished. It was really a gorgeous, gorgeous gun. And I realized that I had overpaid for it because of the embellishments that someone else had put into it. And I loved that thing. But I didn't know better. This was my very first handgun that I purchased. I had been shooting since I was 12 or 13 with my old man's guns. I would go to the range with him. I would shoot whatever it was that he had. I didn't have those options available to me prior to where I could just pick and choose whatever I wanted. So I was learning and I was experimenting. And I knew that I shot very proficiently with his Smith & Wesson 3913 and 6906. 3913 is this exact gun, but not black, just the all silver finish. And the 6906 was this gun, but in a double stack fat ass configuration, high capacity. And after having my 45-16 for less than 6 months, I did not want to carry it anymore. It was too friggin' heavy. That thing was a beast. I don't remember the exact weight on it. I'm sure if I looked online, I could reference it. But I would have to venture a guess that that thing weighed as much as a full-size, 5-inch government-size 1911 from the time. That's a lot of weight for a 21-year-old kid who at the time, I weighed 130 pounds at 6 foot tall, and I had a 28-inch waist. It was very hard to conceal that kind of gun and carry it off comfortably. Back in those days, there was no such thing as appendix carry. It did not exist. So we were carrying 3, 4, 5 o'clock position, strong side. And I hated it. I hated carrying it. I enjoyed shooting it. A gun that big and heavy was very, very easy to shoot. So when the 3913, the 3914, like I have here, became readily available, a lot of us got excited because we loved the third generation Smith pistols. And this to us was compact. Yet we were seriously excited. And I can imagine the older generation, the boomers, who had, if they wanted to carry something smaller, let's say a police officer's backup gun or a detective's concealed carry gun, they were carrying a 5-shot J-frame. So to have a semi-automatic that was this small got everybody excited. We loved these guns. Now, the 3913, 3914 had been around for a long time, long before that. But they had experienced a resurgence for some reason toward the end of their production run, and they got popular again. So I think the 3913 goes back to the early 80s, if I'm not mistaken, because the Model 39 came out in the late 60s, 68, 69, was prominent in the 70s and early to mid 80s. So I believe around that time, this was 1994, 95, that it was toward the end of their life cycle. And they got popular all of a sudden, all over again. So fast forward many years, and I've been through a million kind of guns, and I had decided I want to go back and revisit some nostalgia. I wanted to find myself a third gen Smith that was in as close to new condition as I could find. And I was talking about this with a friend of mine at the time. He says, hey, what a coincidence. I have a 3914, and it's in phenomenal shape. I mean, look at the finish of this thing. The black oxide finish on this is not as strong as today's DLC finishes or whatnot, yet this thing still looks fantastic. There's very minimal wear on this gun, even from my holstering and my shooting, let alone for whoever had it before, whatever they did with it. It's held up really well for a 30-plus-year-old gun, because this was made somewhere in the early 90s. And for those that have never handled one, for me, the only way to carry it is with the aftermarket rubber Hogue grip. They come with plastic panels that wrap around the rear. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just very slick and slippery. Plus, you have to remember this is an aluminum alloy frame with a steel slide. So unlike polymer, there's nowhere for the shock of the explosion in that chamber to go except through into your hand. There's no polymer to absorb any of that. So it all comes straight back into your hand. So it's nice to have this extremely thick rubber going around the sides as well as around the back strap. It also gives you a little bit more thickness as well, so that now I have somewhere that this support hand can go. Because with the plastic grips, it's a lot slimmer. Because realize this is just a single stack 8-round magazine for 9mm, so it's very, very skinny. So this is just perfect for my sized hands. I love it. Now, the other reason that I'm happy about going back to this is being hammer fired. I only have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 3 double action hammer fired guns. The other hammer fired guns I have are 1911s, 2011s. They're single action. So going through those very quickly, my CZP-07, which I absolutely love. Do want to show clear on that. What I have in here is a snap cap. And my full custom Langdon Tactical Beretta PX4 Storm compact carry. Love this thing. I've done a review on this as well. And that, of course, is also clear. Love this gun as well. And now that I think of it, there's a strong similarity in the ergonomics between these two pistols. The verticalness of the grip, the way your fingers rest on the front strap, everything. Even the length of pull, the reach of the trigger is very, very similar. So I'd have to say that Beretta may have used a third-gen Smith as possibly a basic template for the design. I don't know. So anyway, the reason why I enjoy, forgot there's no front serrations. It's very, very slick. Old-ass gun. Having a hammer is for second strike capability. If something were to happen and you're in that situation where you pull that trigger and nothing happens, maybe you've got a hard primer. Oh, shit. I want to have that second strike capability that I won't have with my striker-fired guns. Now, I won't carry a gun that has a manual safety. I don't believe in them. I don't want them. My Beretta, of course, being an LTT, that is a G conversion, so it's a decocker only. Automatically snaps back up. My P07 is a decocker only. This is the Omega system. I can swap this out if I wanted to use a manual safety. It does have that option out of the box, but I don't want that. So with this, it's carried safety off because what you've got here is a very long trigger pull. Now, what I think a lot of people don't realize, they may pick up a gun like the P07, which is known for having a long and heavy stacking trigger pull. That's about a 9 to 10 pound trigger pull. I have not Cajunized this. That is on the wish list. This probably will go out to Cajun Gun Works. But people tend to think of something like this, and they don't realize that back in the old days, especially with Smith, a company that was famous for making revolvers, they were really good at tuning double-action triggers to be smooth and clean. And that's exactly what you've got here. A nice, smooth, clean trigger. Now, it's not lightweight, but it doesn't feel excessively heavy either. If I had to guess, because I know for a fact that my Beretta, after the LTT trigger job, goes down to a 6 to 6.5 pound, I would say this is within a pound of that, so this may be 7.5 pound trigger versus the 9.5 to 10 pound trigger that you typically see in the CZ. And yes, it is carried often. That is my holster. People may look at it also and go, well, yeah, but man, you just got 8 rounds of 9mm. Yeah, are you carrying a Smith Shield Plus? You have low capacity in a Shield. Shield Plus obviously being the plus. You don't have to worry about that quite as much. But here's the thing. There are plenty of knowledgeable people that are a lot smarter than I am that will tell you any day of the week that they don't feel unconfident walking out of the house with a 5-shot J-frame in their pocket. Because if 5 rounds of .357 Magnum doesn't get the job done, then you probably weren't going to walk away from the situation anyhow. So I think 8+1, 9 rounds of 9mm, I have that same feeling. I don't feel underpowered. However, I will never say, oh no, that's too many rounds. I want fewer. Because I am absolutely that guy that will buy a gun. I will choose an option between different models to get the one that carries more ammo. Absolutely. I want to have that whenever possible. But here's another thing to consider. The weight of carry. 9 rounds versus in this one as I carry it, I'm carrying 16 rounds plus I'm carrying a 17-round spare mag in the sidecar of my holster. I'm carrying around almost a gun's worth of weight just in ammunition. So by only having 9 rounds in this, even though it's an alloy frame and not a polymer, it's still a fairly lightweight carry. And that may make things more comfortable for you. So I'll say this, if you're here because you're interested in the 3rd gen Smith & Wesson pistols and you're wondering, are they so outdated that I should just look past them? Or can I follow my heart because I look at it and I love it? Am I making a mistake by getting it? No, you're absolutely not making a mistake. You're buying a very, very, very well-made gun, period. They have proven to be extraordinarily reliable. They're easy to shoot. I've never had one that wasn't wonderfully accurate. Yeah, the sights suck. It's Novak style 3-dot white sights. They're not night sights. You don't have a cool, trendy little ledge on the front to be able to rack your slide off the back of your shoe or your belt loop or your neighbor's wife's ass, or whatever it is that you want to rack shit off of. Novaks don't allow for that. And as you saw, there's no front serrations, so you're not going to ever rack your slide from the front. There's little things that you might miss. There's no mag well to speak of, and obviously there's a mag well. That's where your magazine goes, but it's very, very lightly beveled. But this is not a competition gun. It's not about your reload speed. It's just your carry gun, man. So a carry gun should also be really good on the range so that you have your practice in. These are fun to shoot. I often take this gun with me to the range, even if I'm taking something out and all I'm doing is shooting a gun to, zero my red dots. I probably have this in my range bag with me because I just want to take it out and fire a couple of mags through it because it's a fun gun to shoot. I've always enjoyed it. Whoa, the bore axis is so high relative to the palm of your hand, and it doesn't matter, man. Don't fall into the buzzwords. Yes, low bore axis is cool, and it can make a bit of a difference. It's not night and day. Listen, SIG still sells a hell of a lot of P226s, P228s, P229s with the same bore axis, the same height of bore over your hand. This is not a snappy gun at all. The checkering is nicely done on the front strap. The checkering on the front of the trigger guard also nicely done. So if you did learn to shoot before the 2000s, almost everybody did this. They had their finger on the front of the trigger guard to give extra control. And that's fine. Sometimes I still revert to that. It's a habit that I have a hard time breaking. So you've got the checkering up there. Doesn't matter what you have back here because it had wraparound plastic grips and now it has a wraparound. Well, it's actually two-piece rubber grip, but it looks like a wraparound. And that doesn't matter. But your hands are nice and stuck in place on the rubber until they get wet. Yeah, man, it's rubber. If your hand gets wet, it's going to get a little bit slick. It is bumpy. Bumpily, whatever. I don't know what you want to call it. It's got little bumps all over it like acne. And that gives you a little bit of extra tactility, sure. To me, the only things I do not like about this gun are the fact that there was a thing, man, in the late 80s, early 90s, this whole magazine disconnect. I'm having a hard time remembering, but I believe it's because many people got shot. And the excuse they used was, oh, it was unloaded, man. I don't know how that happened. I thought it was unloaded. Well, if the trigger works, it's because the magazine is in the gun. When the magazine is out, you got a trigger disconnect. You can reverse that. I just never have bothered because I don't know if it's going to affect the action of my trigger that I actually really like on this thing. And if you're wondering about dry firing, it's totally fine with these. The reason I have a snap cap in this is because you have this roll pin. Was it this roll pin? There's a roll pin in here somewhere. I think that's for the extractor, so it's this roll pin that can break from the firing pin going forward and not meeting resistance of a live round. And it can bend that roll pin, and then that renders this less safe to carry. So this, you only dry fire with a snap cap. This one doesn't matter. Again, these things are bulletproof, man. 3rd gen Smith, do whatever the hell you want to with it. You're just not going to hurt it. Now, like a 1911, you do want to make sure she runs wet. You want to keep it properly lubricated. Mine's actually a little bit dry right now. Just to be on the safe side. Again, it's an all-metal gun. Things happen. The wetter, the better. All the controls are easy to get to, even the safety if you were to use it, which I do not. Safety is always off because to me, that revolver-like trigger stroke is enough safety for me. I don't know if it's possible for someone to mill the slide to put a red dot on there because I don't know the relationship of the height of the firing pin within the slide to know if that's an issue. It's about the only thing that you'd be inhibiting. You're not going to go so low that you're messing with the extractor. You're probably going far enough forward that you're probably going to screw with the pin that holds the extractor in place. But I don't know. So I don't know if it's even possible. But I'm okay with that. Like I've said many times before, I absolutely love optics. I have optics on nearly every pistol I own. But if for some reason I don't have optics, like these two guns were never available with a slide cut, I'm okay with that, man. Because I grew up learning how to use sights. So it doesn't bother me. It doesn't mean that the gun is any less useful. I just find target acquisition a little bit quicker and more positive when I've got a red dot. It's a convenience feature. And it's something that I enjoy, but I don't feel is an absolute necessity. I do wish you could put an accessory rail on here. I wish there was a way to put a small flashlight TLR7 or something on here. I know when they did the Team Smith & Wesson, the TSW versions from the custom shop of the 3913s and whatnot, they had a rail that was milled in and then an accessory rail that you bolted to that you could then attach things to. But you're not often gonna come across a Team TSW 3913 or 3914. I love the all blacked out look of the 3914. Well, I think the 3913 is handsome. The 3914 is just a little bit more mysterious, a little bit more sinister, and I kind of dig that. For my size hand, I absolutely have to have that pinky extension on the magazine, so I'm very glad it's on there. I don't believe that they ever made a flat base plate. If they did, I'm just simply unaware of it or don't recall it. I do believe they all had that finger extension because, again, this was the early days of a compact semi-auto. So big guys carrying big guns, if their pinky was going up underneath it, it probably would have cost them a lot of sales. So that's the way I see it. So is it so antiquated that you can't enjoy it on the range? Absolutely not. It shoots accurately. It shoots reliably, and it's a wonderful gun to shoot. Is it so antiquated that it should be relegated to Safe Queen and not be carried? No. If you're okay with only having 9 rounds of 9mm, only, then I think you've got a great choice here. These days, you're going to pay between $300 and $400 for one. I think that's perfectly acceptable, especially in a time where used Glocks are $500 and up. There was a time when these were new, when you would tell people, just go buy a used Glock. They're like $350. Those days are so far behind us now, it's not even funny. So I think for the money, it's a solid choice. They're not an investment grade piece, that's for sure. I don't really see them going up in value. I think for a small amount of time, a few years back, maybe just prior to COVID, there was a little spike in the pricing, just again because of nostalgia. But go online and look around, and you're not going to see them going for much. Every now and then, rarely, I'll walk into a gun shop and I'll see a 3913 or 6906 or something sitting there in a case. And even in fair condition, they usually charge $425, $450. Because they've got the overhead of having a shop. They're not, an online gun store that has much less overhead. So they're going to make more profit. I don't know that I would spend over $425 on one unless it was a Team TSW. Then yes, I would. Because then you're getting the better trigger. You're getting the accessory rail, which I don't even know if you could attach a modern day flashlight to their old accessory rail. I have no knowledge on that. But I enjoy it. I think it is still one of the most handsome guns that's ever been made. And that's still important to me on some level. Why does everybody want a Model 92 Beretta? Whether it's an M9 or it's an original 92S, 92F, because it's a sexy Italian gun. They were friggin' gorgeous. Sure, they shoot great and they're reliable and so on and so forth, but so are most of the guns available today in a decent brand. Listen, you're not buying Skies and High Points here, so you're generally going to be getting into a reliable gun. So at some point, the beauty of it has to factor in. And I think the third gen Smiths are beautiful. Is it because I'm a bit older? Yeah, not possibly. Nostalgia could be playing a part in that for sure, and I'm okay with that. I have no illusions about my age. I don't look like I'm 30. I don't act like I'm 30. I don't need to pretend like I'm 30. But I am at that age where I'm old enough to appreciate certain things, but I'm still young enough that I'm not closed-minded to newer things. So if Smith said next year we're going to relaunch these guns in a modernized design, we're going to make a polymer frame version that's striker fired with a lower bore axis, but it's going to feel the same in the hand and it's going to look the same, I'd be right in line to buy one. Smith, do some retro shit. Who does that? Nobody. Man, look what it's done in the car industry. Look what Chevy brought the look of the 69 Camaro back in the 2000s. Man, it was huge. When Dodge brought the Challenger back and you looked like you were driving a car from the 70s. It was huge. Why don't we see that in the gun industry? Man, that would be fun. And I don't mean just a facelift. Really modernize it. Make that thing a polymer-framed, hammer-fired replica of this. Something that's lighter in weight and possibly more capacity. That could happen. And absorbs the recoil better. And work on a slightly better recoil system. The guide rod on here is just a basic metal guide rod with a single coiled spring. It's nothing to write home about. As far as the weight of it, that's probably like a 9-pound spring. Maybe even offer a version that's ported. Oh, yeah. Man, if Smith did a polymer striker fired or hammer fired, ported, retro 3913, 3914, 6906, whatever. How cool would that be? If you think that's a great idea, sound off down below. I can't be the only one that would think that that's cool. And you might get some of the younger crowd, the guys that are only buying Glocks and Glock clones, or hipster CZs. I say that having owned many CZs myself. I'm not knocking anybody. You might get that crowd to go into a classic like this just by modernizing it. I think that would be kind of fun. Anyway, I have rambled on far long enough. I'm going to get out of here for now. So here is a not quick. Here is my little desk pop on the Smith & Wesson 3914, why I feel it's still pretty relevant, why I enjoy it. And I think at some point I'm going to follow this video up with some range footage and go out there and show you how much fun you can actually have with this thing and show that it is still a viable carry gun. Until then, I'll see you guys later. Thank you.